brought to you by LIVE Products. LIVE, live now. We're live now. We have a series of drinks, punches, as well as cleaning products. If you live in the Trinidad and Tobago area, you can order. The number is in the description. Shout out to Carlos Digital, who brought this to my attention, and we're going to look into it very quickly. Uh, Carlos Digital says how it started, how it went. Proof online narratives are just that. And Moonlight Warrior, he's a great Snyderverse hater. Back in so many years ago, uh, he said Shazam: Fury of the Gods. I think that was the year before last year. Shazam: Fury of the Gods has $175 million budget and the goodwill of the first film. So he's saying why these films would succeed. The Flash has the return of Keaton Batman. Blue Beetle is low risk at 100 million budget. Aquaman 2 will release during the holidays. Every DC film in 2023 will succeed. He said that. That was his tweet. Indeed, things have not been going well. The production budgets and likely marketing spends for these four films will cost between 1.1 billion and 1.2 billion in total, according to experts outside the studio. But Shazam 2 has already bombed, earning a feeble 133 million globally. The Flash has just opened to a mere 55 million in the US and Canada, grossing 135.7 million worldwide as June 19th, well under expectations and nowhere near what a film of this caliber and cost needs to approach breaking even. I'm going to tell you where that source comes from in a minute. Shout out to Carlos Digital. This was the original article from Variety. This is the article that states that yes, DC lost over 1.1 billion on these movies. And mind you, that 1.1 billion that they lost on these movies, that was up to the Flash. We have not included Blue Beetle. We have not included Aquaman 2, and we have not included Joker Part 2. DC been losing money for Warner Brothers for the longest while. Like I said before, it's a burden, and here's the documented proof. But this one is only going up to 2023 when The Flash came out. But nonetheless, let's go to that Variety article, which I will go to right now. Here it is. So this was the Variety article. Here, the Flash box office disaster exposes DC's $1.1 billion product for Warner Brothers. It's way over that now. It's way past 1.2 billion, right? It's somewhere near like 1.5 billion, probably even more, because Aquaman did make its budget and so on. I think it was like 67 million inside of what it should have made to break even. And then let's not talk about Joker Part 2, which I believe did not even make back its budget. So that's how crazy that is. So DC's just been a burden on Warner Brothers for the last 6 years. Okay. It started being a burden with Justice League 2017, which lost the studio. I think it was somewhere in the vicinity of, if I'm not mistaken, close to $100 million, but not just a bit under $100 million it cost them. And then we then had Birds of Prey, which cost them money. You had Wonder Woman 84, it cost them money. We had Zack Snyder Justice League came out. They put out money to have that movie done, and I don't know why, but they did not put it into cinemas to get back their money that they put out. Of course, there was a huge swelling in the budget for Justice League. It went to 300. It was a $300 million movie. It went from a $250 million movie, $270 million movie to a $300 million movie. They poured a lot of money into it. So it really, from the jump, needed 750 million to break even. And that's all on the studio. The studio decided to change up what the movie originally was. If the movie was left as it originally was, I believe it would not be in the negative at all. I think the movie would have made money. How much money it would have made, we don't know, because we just don't know. Zack Snyder is still a controversial character. The movie would not have been a 4-hour cut. It would have been a 3-hour, I believe somewhere around 214 minutes, which is the equivalent of 3 hours and what remains? Let's see. It's 180 minutes minus 214. What's that? 134. That would be, so it would have been 3 hours and 34 minutes. Okay. Which again, when you think about that, it's long, but you know, it's deserving of a movie like that, you know. And I believe if Zach didn't include the nightmare scene at the end of Zack Snyder's Justice League, I think he'd have had it at about 3 hours and 34 minutes. But because he did the little extra thing with the Joker and with Batman and Mira and Cyborg and so on, I think that was a last minute thing. I think that pushed it over the 4 hour limit. But quite frankly, tremendous mistake on their part. They lost a lot of money, and they obviously that movie probably would have made over $1 billion because it was BVS made close to $1 billion, and definitely Zack Snyder's Justice League, the version that would have gone out into theaters would have probably cleared. You know, probably get somewhere like a 1.07 billion, maybe 1.1, maybe $1.1 billion. And what's the irony of that situation is, imagine if Zack Snyder Justice League made 1.1 to $1.2 billion, and then the series of films that came out would not have caused the box office loss like we had. We had, I believe, the DC universe, whichever version you want to go with, has had since Shazam, the first Shazam, just straight flops. Not a single DC movie from since Shazam in 2019 has broken even. Every single last one of them has flopped. So you're talking Birds of Prey, Wonder Woman, The Suicide Squad. Once they debuted into the theaters, right? Black Adam, Shazam 2, The Flash, Blue Beetle, and Aquaman 2. That's 8 straight flops from 2020 all the way to 2023, which I believe is the last movie that came out. So 3 years of flops, 8 straight flops, and in 2025, which is this year, they intend to do pretty much the same template that they've been doing all along, but now they're using Mr. Marvel, you know, the guy who let the Marvel Cinematic Universe, you know, kind of lit it on fire with Guardians of the Galaxy. They're hoping that they hope that Joss Whedon could do it. Now they're hoping that James Gunn could do it. It's basically the same incarnation of the same formula that has been flopping in their cinemas. And somehow they believe, somehow, some way, I don't know how, that James Gunn's going to pull this off. I don't know who's advising these executives. I don't know why. I don't know what's motivating them. But clearly, they seem to want to have Warner Brothers basically crumble into nothingness. Warner Bros. Has relationships with Amazon Prime, Amazon. They have relationships with what do you call them? The people who do Universal Pictures. Comstat? What the fuck? I can't remember the name of it right now. But they have relationships with those two companies. However, they even have relationships with Netflix. However, right now, the way how things are going, it really makes sense for them, you know, because Disney right now has Fox. I'm not sure if Paramount still exists by itself or if it's bought over by another company. MGM has been bought out by Amazon. People talking about selling Warner Brothers to Netflix. I'm really Comcast. That's the name I'm looking for. Comcast. I'm hoping Comcast somehow buys out either the Warner Brothers stock or buys out the DC stuff from Warner Brothers. Whatever. I don't care how it goes. But honestly speaking, Warner Brothers is not doing a good job with DC right now. And they have no imagination. They have no direction. They have no vision. And it's proven. This is the evidence here. Now, I know I've been talking for way too long, 10 minutes in. And I see some of you have jumped on this stream, even though I'm not sure. I think I shared it. Yes, I did share the stream. And let me go into a couple of things here. So, in this article, The Flash is the second of 4 mega-budgeted DC adaptations the studio is set to release this year, starting with Shazam: Fury of the Gods in March, followed by Blue Beetle and Aquaman: The Lost Kingdom in August and December. Yet these movies were conceived and greenlit by an executive team that have all departed from the studio. In their place, new DC's chiefs James Gunn and Peter Safran have announced they will reboot the DC franchise in 2025, starting with Gunn's Superman Legacy. And that was one of the worst things you could have done to DC. You basically put a dead blow there. So people didn't bother to go see the movies. That left Warner Bros. In the worst rock and a hard place conundrums in memory. 2023 slate of DC films are now orphans in a moribund cinematic universe, but the studio still needs audiences to see them on a blockbuster scale. It is perhaps unavoidable, but a terrible case of timing, says a source at a rival studio. Audiences don't feel like they have to invest 2 hours of their life because it's not going to matter going forward. Things have not been going well. The production budgets, and likely marketing spends for these 4 films will cost between $1.1 billion and $1.2 billion in total, according to experts outside the studio. But Shazam 2 has already bombed, earning a feeble $133 million globally. And The Flash just opened to a mere $55 million in the US and Canada, grossing $1.35 million worldwide as of June 19th. Well under expectations and nowhere near what a film of this caliber and cost needs to approach breaking even. And we know the rest of the story. And so I just wanted to actually go into the Variety article so you guys could see. Shout out to Carlos Digital for putting this out there. And the point I'm making is this. This was at the time when The Flash came out. Okay? 1.1 billion, 1.2 billion it would cost the studio. And it's way over that right now. And imagine James Gunn's supposed blockbuster that's supposed to come out, which is Superman. They invested 300, according to the records, at least from Warner Brothers, they invested $363 million into that movie. So I don't understand. That's an inflated budget to start with. And second of all, that's a big budget, by the way. And then second of all, which is more ridiculous, is the fact that that movie now has to make close to $1 billion to even break even. And there is no hype for this movie. Their only hype is to say that this trailer came out and, so many people viewed the trailer. They started creating hype for the movie. But there isn't the hype that is necessary for this movie to be successful on that level. No DC film has even come close to it. There's no buzz behind this film. Nothing. So it's one of those things where you look at the scenarios being pitched in front of you, to look at the scenarios that are happening in front of you, and you wonder what the hell is about to happen. What's about to go down with DC? Again, my theory is I think David Zaslav and James Gunn are just really trying to basically skydive the DC brand, reduce stock so that Disney would buy out DC. I think this was always an espionage thing going on, because they're firing all the affected people. They fired the very successful guy who was doing advertising for them, who caused Barbie to be their biggest hit ever. Masterful advertising campaign. It looks like they want to get rid of Abdi and DeLuca, who have been the only successful executives for Warner Brothers, producing the most successful stuff. Now, we don't know what will happen and transpire before the end of this year, but they're talking about Peter Safran replacing them. And, people are saying he's a successful producer when it comes to the Conjuring movies, but that's all he has under his belt. Abdi and DeLuca have a lot of successes under their belt just into the studio, one of the biggest successes they've had is Barbie. So I can't understand what they're talking about. Gunn and Safran have not been performing as executives for DC so far, in my opinion. They haven't produced a single movie under their charge, which has even broken even. So I don't understand how you can pivot from Abdi and DeLuca and go to these guys. But this is the other thing I wanted to show you guys, which I should have shown you guys. Let me see if I can find it here somewhere. It might be in this feed. It may not be in this feed. So the advertising campaign for James Gunn's Suicide Squad has been abysmal. Even though people are saying it's very popular, what is it very popular for? I wanted to show you the cost. This is the actual documentation showing the actual cost of these movies. Let's see if I can. Contrary to James Gunn's social media post, WB has publicly stated that Superman Legacy will spend $63 million making Superman Legacy, so roughly $270 million plus real net budget. Gunn implied the journalist making such a claim had no way to assess his information, but it's easily obtainable from public records. And that's the public records here. And if you look, let me see if I can find it. This was submitted by the way, for Ohio Motion Picture Tax Exemption application. So the amount, let me see if I can find it, if it's on this. It should be somewhere here. As you can see, Warner Brothers is the one that applied. SNK Pictures to the state. I'm not seeing the actual figure here, but I do have the application somewhere else. Here it is. So this is the application itself. And if you look right here, right there, it says total production budget $363,845,386. So the percentage of the total budget to be eligible for expenditures is 10.16%. So they had to declare the actual budget for the movie, and they're putting out some serious money here on this movie. Okay, so it's not a lie. So with that movie up and coming, with Superman up and coming, and that is probably going to be a flop. The first thing I noticed about it was, okay, the Flash costume design is actually better, in my opinion, than the Superman costume design. It's actually more elaborate, very plasticky feeling, but at least the design, it has some. It has some. It looks cheap, but it still has some form to it. The costume design for James Gunn's Suicide Squad is just less than stellar, okay? And I mean, it's so fucking cheap. Look at this thing. So, let's see, we can find some more stuff here. The costume design is just awful. Look at that. Ugh. Oh, Lord. So anyway, that's what we're dealing with. And I just don't know what to say. I don't know what to say that this costume design even looks cheap. It looks very, very cheap. And that's the thing about, that's the thing about this movie, Anywho, I should have moved on. I kind of stayed a long time on this. let me go to another thing that I want to talk to you guys about. But shout out to Carlos Digital on that. I took 20 minutes to do that. That shouldn't have taken so long. So Vinay says, this is what I ordered. This is what they delivered to me. Fans wanted Henry Cavill back as Superman. Henry Cavill came back. He announced he would be Superman, and then they yanked Henry Cavill from there and replaced Henry Cavill with this guy. And to this day, a lot of DC fans are highly disappointed that Henry Cavill's not back as Superman doing a Superman movie. So there's that. And then on top of that, this Superman that we're getting, I don't know, words cannot describe how disappointed a lot of people are. It's like, okay. They're still trying to recalibrate. Okay. We were going to get Henry. We liked Henry. We asked for Henry, and finally we were getting Henry. And then all of a sudden you yank Henry out and you put this guy there? Like, why? That's how a lot of people are feeling. And I can't blame them. Honestly, can't blame them. And Vinny's pretty much articulating what the majority of DC fans out there and the DC audience, and some of the DC audience didn't even know that Henry Cavill was replaced. So, it's really, really rough on people right now. Now, the other part that I wanted to talk to you guys about was Muhammad Khalil's abduction. And yes, he was abducted. And I'm going to explain to you why that is so, and why this is a kidnapping, and why the law does not protect the people who have violated this, and it's a criminal act, and whoever has been directly involved in this, whoever has given the orders, they're in breach of whatever the legal laws are for people kidnapping and holding hostage individuals. Those laws apply right there. And it's important that Khalil's family sue the U.S. government and all people associated with what just happened, which is DHS, whoever. It needs to be a massive lawsuit, and that needs to begin like yesterday, because this is an abduction. This is not. Let me get people to understand the law. They never gave a reason for kidnapping Mahmoud Khalil, sorry. They're trying to use the Terrorist Act as the reason why they abducted him. That doesn't apply because even though, yes, like in the UK, you don't have to specify what it is that this person was abducted for. In my case, I call it abduction. You will have to, in the court of law, because the courts prosecute in the United States, you will have to give a reason, and a concrete reason, why this person has been held hostage by you in the United States of America. I don't know what happens in UK, whether certain things could be waived because of national security or whatever, but they can't just waive the national security reason in front of a local court of law. You have to show what are the charges you have against this man, what has he done, and how has he conspired against the United States of America, which he's not conspiring against the United States of America. First of all, the issue they have is with Israel and with the campus working with Israel, and they want him to divest from Israel. The government has directly, again, used specific law. Again, a federal government is not supposed to use specific laws. When the laws get again, this is probably an executive order that has been carried out, but specific laws are for the specific states. You guys need to understand how your country is built. Okay? So therefore, to have a specific law regarding a specific issue that's coming up in American politics is not for you, the federal government, to judge on. The federal government is there to do general law that the different states now will choose to either abide by or not. The courts in the states will choose to abide by or not. It's supposed to be general. When you put a specific law Take, for instance, Barack Obama tried to implement Obamacare, and various states revolted against that, and they repealed that law in their state. And very much the same can happen in New York. In New York, a petition can be sent out to the New York Congress. There's the Senate there, and they can have the localized members of that Senate vote to repeal the law that Donald Trump has just put through in an executive order. Furthermore, the state of New York can then, on repealing that law or on repealing whatever he executively carried out, they can now issue arrest warrants to the agencies which abducted Mahmoud Khalil, and they can start a criminal investigation on these different arms. You have to understand the powers that your individual states have. And I think a lot of you don't understand the law. And so because you do not understand the law, you do not understand the consequences of somebody breaking the law. You must understand that you, the people, have way more power than you think. A breach of law at any point in time can be pursued in a criminal court or in a domestic court. Mahmoud Khalil can easily win this case against the DHS because the government is the organization that is the most clumsy, the most fucking messy. No, the U.S. government is one of the most incompetent governments you'll ever find on the planet. It's a lot of money moving around, but the incompetency is it's epic. Okay? The U.S. government loses so many cases. They lose so many cases. They lose cases in the Supreme Court. If you really want to get money, you want to be wealthy, sue the U.S. government on a case of rights. Mahmoud Khalil has the right to protest. He had the right to free speech. These are enshrined in the Constitution. And now, not only does he have the right, but his family has the right to sue the living shit out of the U.S. Government and agencies that have abducted Khalil, to sue the living shit in a civil case, and then to prosecute them in a criminal case. And all they need is the lawyers who are willing to take up the cases and carry their cause. This is an easy open and shut thing because the violation of the Constitution, the violation of the laws of New York State, the violation of this is a straightforward abduction. A police officer cannot arrest you and take you in his custody without first reading you your rights, the Miranda rights, and secondly, informing you what is the either criminal or the social or the what do we call it, infraction that you have done. They have to inform you of why they're arresting you. If they don't inform you of why they're arresting you, they have to let you go free. And you could actually countersue them for violating your rights as a citizen. Okay? You can countersue them, and you can countersue them majorly. Like you can make a lot of money off of that. And so the reason I'm saying this is because you need to understand what the legal implications of this is. You can't get all emotional. You can't be like, the state can only do this and the state can. No, you have to look at the legal implications. The reason the court of law refrained the organizations from deporting Mahmoud Khalil is because the court of law in New York State realized that there are no grounds for Mahmoud Khalil being arrested, being detained anywhere. And they went out of state of New York into Louisiana or wherever they went so that they could not have to carry him back to New York State. But once he's in New York State, whether he's in a court there, he's in New York State's jurisdiction. The other thing that can happen is you can have what is called a you can legally I forgot what the word is I'm looking for here. You can freeze. You can put in the state of New York, you can put in a forgot what it's called. It's not a cease and desist, but you can freeze the case that they have against Khalil. You know, you can legally start going in and if depending on what agency it is, if it's a government agency, you can freeze that case. It's not freeze I'm looking for. It's the right word for it, but I can't remember what it is right now. So you can kind of freeze a case until the court case of the matter is finished. So they're really what they're trying to do is the same thing that Israel does to people they abduct in Palestine. They're trying to make him disappear through the framework of bureaucracy and make it very difficult for him to get his freedom. The problem with it is this isn't Israel. There are actually local courts in this country, in America. Sorry, I'm not American. I don't even live in America. There are courts and there are states. Unlike Israel, which is not made up of different states with different laws that govern them, the U.S. is like that. So if the case has to be prosecuted in New York, and Khalil has to go to New York for the case to have validity, they cannot detain him indefinitely. If they don't have, so the court can now, I guess they're right now deliberating whether he should be released or not. And if the DHS or whatever they are that are DOD, whatever they are called, the people who have arrested him under grounds of national security or whatever, they need to have damning evidence against him, because if it's just his speech and if they cannot show that, you know, a direct connection to him and Hamas, for example, if they cannot show that in his accounts, of course they could falsify his accounts and stuff, and he can just simply say, no, they tampered with my accounts. I never had a transfer. I don't know anything about this, right? But if they can show that, because they can, you know, bring up false charges, and they can, you know, hack into your accounts, and they can put money in your account that wasn't there before and so on. But if he has receipts showing his accounts and his information and the rundown of his information, if he has physical receipts, if he has digital receipts on that, he can combat them in the court of law. Of course, there's always a digital trail, so we can always find out when these receipts were updated, when these transactions actually occurred. And if they falsified transactions, have falsified dates, we can track it down and find out that somebody hacked into his account and started putting these things in there. So there's many different ways to deal with this situation. But at the end of the day, I think to deter this situation from ever happening again, because they're talking about this is just the beginning. But, you know, as I said before, the one thing we have going for us in this world is the government of the United States of America is extremely incompetent. Just like how Warner Brothers executives and Warner Brothers are extremely incompetent. Okay, this is the blessing we have with the whole thing, because they're extremely incompetent. They'll make bad law, and you can use the existing law to show that this is bad law, and then overturn whatever it is, you know, that the bad law that he made, and then you could actually prosecute them for making such bad law. So there's all these little things inside of there, and if you got a good lawyer, you know, who knows how to cut through the cheese and get to the facts, there's no doubt this case can be won. And this dude could be a multimillionaire, you know, at the end of the day. He can sue the shit out of them, plus prosecute and find a way to get the people directly related to him in court again, dealing with criminal offenses for what they've done. So guys like Donald Trump, guys like, JD Vance, and all of the Congress agrees, had been labeling this guy what he is, and playing politics, playing political games, because they know, legally speaking, they have no grounds for what they're doing, and could end up in a lawsuit that, basically wipes them out. um, you know, they need to learn from consequence, and the legal framework is there. It's rigid, it's strong in America, and it's strong enough to deal with redundancies. One, two, deal with bad law that's being passed, because now I see a lot of presidents using executive orders to get things done, but executive orders not passed by Congress, and even if something is passed by Congress, in the individual states, like I said before, they can repeal those laws. Not to mention, the courts can have their own jurisdiction on them and declare X, Y, and Z on this. And literally, because the more direct you come, the closer you come to the people, is the more direct things can happen. Of course, if the courts were to go in favor of the government and actually go against the law, you can always go to the Supreme Court or a higher court, and you can appeal. All right. So this action here is easily dealt with legally. And then for the abductors, if the abductors do not release Khalil, they could be held to pay, because once you have a sufficient amount of the population aware of what this particular regime or government is trying to do, which is abduct people from the public and hold them hostage in some area, which has been happening in different countries, but now it's now beginning to get our attention, then we can actually also use legislation under the Human Trafficking Act that could literally obliterate these people. Like, they have no idea the different laws that are in place to ensure that no federal body, gets away just like that. You don't get away with this shit. There's laws in place that could put you in extremely a lot of trouble, like real heat, and you could threaten the lives of court judges. You can try and kill people, assassinate people to replace people, try and put your people in place. The laws are still there, and they're enforceable laws. So if they have no fucking idea what they're going up against. This is not fucking Germany. This is not fucking Greece or France or fucking Israel. This is fucking America, motherfucker. You're not bigger than anybody. Donald Trump is not bigger than the people. You might have been using the people. See, because the people didn't know. See, the public didn't know. You see? The public didn't know what their rights and because everybody was just going to cocoon. Okay, the president's running the country. People started putting their trust in the elected officials until they started to feel the brunt of the pressure and the pain that was coming back at them. And the elected officials weren't doing anything to help them. Not one damn thing. And that's when the people, more important people, are realizing their governments are not there to serve them. They are there to carry out an agenda that is set in some fucking Bilderberg building, when the most influential people in the world meet, and presidents and heads of state. They're just like little fucking, acolytes. They're just there to hear what the agenda is, and then they have to play their role and carry it out. Okay? So I'm saying right now, what looks like the tiger has teeth and it looks like your democracies are falling apart, it's bullshit. They don't have no fucking teeth. It's an illusion. The devil is the master of deception. I remember my good friend, Mr. Williams, telling me this. He said, the devil rules the world by deception. Intimidation. You intimidate people so they wouldn't investigate the truth. They wouldn't know their rights. They wouldn't know their powers. They wouldn't know what they could stand on out here. The system is made in such a way that for every move that these fuckers try to do, there is a counter move. So maybe at the federal level, they can do whatever they want. They can make any kind of law. the Constitution was supposed to be the constraint through which the people who were doing and making law were doing it in good faith. There's no such thing as good faith anymore amongst the majority of Congress and the majority of Senate. People are not trying to make good law in good faith anymore. And the illusion that they were before was to keep the people sedated. The French Revolution, which was backed by the Rothschilds, it happened as a result of the people rejecting the monarchy. They thought that the rulership was tyrannical, and they decided to revolt, and it was supported by the Rothschilds, as well as the Rothschilds were also supporting the monarchy. But whoever was supposed to win this war, they'd have their foot in the door because they financed them. Now, from the French Revolution came Napoleon, who was a fucking tyrant. Okay? But the point I'm making is, people voted out Joe Biden and voted out Kamala Harris because what they were doing was oppressive and tyrannical. And so if Donald Trump continues this tyranny that he's trying to implement in a very complex society where one fucking wrong move means he's annihilated, you don't understand how dangerous this game he's playing is. Because the people are already tired of the leadership. And if the leadership makes one more round move, the prime minister of my country, he resigned from being prime minister. You know why? Because the people were tired of his ass, one. And if he kept on making bloopers, they're going to annihilate him. They're going to annihilate these people. That's what you have to understand. The people can take so much. They can be sedated so much. And you would think, oh, with all the technology and the military equipment and so on. But you got to understand something. Yes, you may have AI, you may have drones, you may be able to attack the people with drones and stuff. But I'm going to say this right now so everybody gets this straight. In the US of A, the American people, if you as a government try to wage war against the American people, if you want to see how rebellious the American people are and how resilient they are and how determined they are to overthrow you, and they realize you're anti-American, they will eat you alive. I don't give a fuck what technology you have. They're going to come for you. And do understand, a lot of your military is going to turn against you. A lot of people who gave their lives even did some of the most egregious things in the name of national security or state security, and they realized they've been fucking betrayed. Trust me, they'll all come for you. And Donald Trump, he's already not a guy that everybody likes. Nobody really likes him. So, and the problem is they may go at Trump and his regime. They may even go at Congress, the Senate. I'm telling you, they're going to come for you, and they're not going to stop. And you'll see mass revolts within the military. You'll see mass revolts within the different states. It won't be a civil war because it won't last that long. But I can guarantee you this. When the people turn against you, it's over. It's over. Okay? The people are turning against the head of Egypt. The people don't like the leadership of Egypt. The people don't like the leadership of Jordan. It's just a touch and go situation. Even in Saudi Arabia, on many issues, the people do not like the leadership of Saudi Arabia. They're all walking on pins and needles. All of these leaders are walking on pins and needles. Most of the UK hate Keir Starmer. They don't like him. The previous prime minister, they don't like him either. It's a wonder that these guys even became prime minister. I want you to understand, worldwide, a lot of people are dissatisfied with their governments and now realizing that their governments are all connected and they're all in this satanic, Kabbalic, Masonic order. The people will be like, fuck you. And they'll overrun the countries and re-establish a different system of governance even, and maybe even multiple sets of people to run a country instead of one person. Right now, China's not getting any backlash because they've been tending to their people. And because they've tended to their people, even though they've been an oppressive regime and they've limited certain things, certain propaganda from coming into the country, but they've tended to their people. So they're a whole foot and a half ahead of everybody right now. China's the future. You know, it's what it is. That's the direction the world's going in. With respect to Russia, Russia's always been the biggest military might in the world. And that's not going to change tomorrow. No matter how much disarm treaties, the United States tries to do. Okay? The world economy is moving in a totally different direction. And Donald Trump, with his stupid tariffs, he's just screwed over the American people yet again. All right? Talking about, we need to clamp down on illegal immigrants. And how does that help the economy? Like, you're supposed to be some kind of great, billion-year successful businessman. How does that help the fucking economy? Man, America could have holes. It could be porous. The fucking borders could be porous, and people are just pouring into America. That's not what's going to hurt the economy. That's not what is hurting the economy. The problem with the economy, the economy of America, first of all, isn't doing bad on a GDP level. Okay? It's never been doing bad on a GDP level. It's the distribution of the wealth that's been doing bad. It's been the poor treatment of the average citizen of the country. It's been bad. The average citizen in the country is supposed to be getting 5 times what he's getting. Okay? 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times what he's getting. Most of the population of the United States of America are underpaid. The artists are not paid by their proper worth. You see? They're completely underpaid. So what happens is, and you see it with Warner Brothers, you see it with entertainment industry, you see it in the these big industries that do construction, these big industries that do car production. You see workers strike because they haven't had a raise in pay in a very long time. And meanwhile, Boeing and Dodge and GM and Chrysler, all these companies are making tremendous profits. The CEOs have these inordinate salaries and inordinate kickbacks. And the average worker, the trade unions, their pay raise hasn't shifted much. The average worker of these companies should be paid 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times what they're getting paid. These are the real issues that happen in America. A select few billionaires and trillionaires in the United States of America are making massive returns and massive profits of money, and they're not injecting any of this money back into the American economy. They're sucking the fucking American economy dry. And this is the people that Donald Trump says he wants to give tax cuts to. People who have been, why would I give you a tax cut? Oh, to stimulate more capitalism and more profits. For whom are these profits happening? The American people are not getting any of these profits. If they were getting off these profits and they're participating in these profits, their pay would be commensurate with what 2025 pay levels are supposed to be in the world right now. Meanwhile, the tariffs are just sending up U.S. products and making life harder for people, not to mention throwing certain businesses out of business because the tariffs, the raw materials they needed are now tariffed to even higher degrees. So you're destroying the small business economy of the United States of America, medium businesses, and even big businesses, which now can't survive because they don't have the raw materials. They can't purchase the raw materials in the amounts they need to purchase them. So ultimately, in the end, his tariff idea was a horrendous idea. Okay? As I heard a Chinese commentator say, they're still stuck in the 1990s. They think the world is like how 1990 was, and all the way up to 2000. They're stuck in pre-2000 thinking. These politicians are so backward. And the problem with the United States of America is this: one regime comes into power, creates certain initiatives of their own accord, maybe trying to answer, let's say, what their base asks them to do, and then either 4 to 8 years later, another regime comes in and reverses all of that. So the net amount of progress that happens in the United States of America is zero. On certain American policies that have to do with the deep state, that moves forward, but everything else doesn't. So what you're ending up with is a empire that's stuck in the 1990s and hasn't progressed past there now for more than 25 years. 25 to 35 years. They've been stuck in time. And so while that's happening and they're stuck in time, guess what? The rest of the world's moving onwards. So for them to now get things in check, they're thinking that their archaic, fucking backward military, which while they've been sucking the money out of the military for contracts that are overinflated and for, regime change and so on, that's still fucking archaic how they approach it. I told you, the U.S. government's so fucking incompetent, it's not funny. Because it's all about now sucking as much money out of the system. Because it's not about the system working. It's about people profiting off the system. And this has been going on now since the 1990s. So that their industries, even their military complex industries, are not up to speed with other world's military industrial complex developments. China is way ahead of the U.S. in terms of drone warfare, in terms of cyber warfare, in terms of just every single form of warfare you could think about. Psychological warfare. They're way ahead of the U.S. now. Gone with the days when Elon Musk's Tesla, was the brainchild that started everything. China has long since surpassed that. They're mass producing electrical vehicles at a rate and at a quantity that's, it's ridiculous. They're making crazy money. China's making crazy money off of all sorts of developments and innovations. All right. So stopping China, and it would be incredibly stupid to try to wage a war with China. It would be but they're doing it. They're trying to do it. But it would be incredibly stupid to engage in a physical war with nuclear weapons. I'll explain how simple this is, and this is why I don't even engage it. China is at least 5 times the size of the United States of America. Okay? The Chinese have defense systems to detonate nuclear weapons and warheads heading in the direction of their country. In other words, they have the technology to shoot down those nuclear weapons. That's the first thing. The United States still does not have mass-produced the technology to protect themselves against nuclear strikes. If nuclear strikes were to happen, the most that Washington and all these other people would do is evacuate underground into underground bunkers, in which the underground bunker will not save you from the nuclear blast fallout that the technology and the weapons, the hypersonic weapons that they have now, which the nuclear weapons can, you heard about bunker busting bombs, right? Well, those are the U.S. equivalent. The nuclear weapons that are being employed by Russia and China, and Russia is exporting to other countries, would absolutely obliterate any bunker 20 miles down, 40 miles across. And if multiple of those nuclear weapons were to blast in, you would get an exponential effect. In other words, hiding underground is not going to save you from a nuclear fallout and a nuclear blast, not to mention the radiation afterwards. So they have to build tunneled places where they can live 200 to 300. Oh, let's put it this way. They need to have a bunker that is 5 to 6 miles underground. You have to make a 5 to 6 mile trip underground to protect yourself from a fallout. And you can't come back up to the surface. You have to live underneath there. Maintain your life, carry on your life and stuff underneath there. And possibly they have something like that. But they'll have to go through tunnels first to get to that place and stay there. Hopefully they could maintain their life for about 4 or 5 years, 6 years. They'll have to go back to the surface to get supplies of some kind. All right. So you have to understand that China and Russia, though they are, to the east of the U.S., or if you want to call it to the east or to the west, whichever way in the world, the globe is a circular thing. You have to understand, if China or Russia were to launch an attack at the United States of America with even one nuclear weapon, meaning one of those hypersonic missiles that can, of course, split up, the warheads can split up. You can get 5, 6, 7, 8 warheads splitting off of the main thing and then going and hitting target sites. If they were to do that, there'd be no United States. Okay? Now, if the United States was to try to bomb major cities in China, as in Russia, again, these are big countries. Iran is bigger than the United States. Saudi Arabia is bigger than the United States. Iraq is bigger than the United States. These are huge countries, and I think a lot of people don't realize that. Okay? And these countries have been around since the beginning of time. Iraq is the Mesopotamian Babylonian Empire, or the Sumerian Empire, the oldest of the oldest empires. The Persian Empire is Iran. Okay? So Syria is Syria. Syria's been it's also in a very old empire, a very old nation. Syria's been there since the very beginning. Abraham, who was considered one of the forefathers of Israel, he came from Syria, as did his wife, Syrian. So see, Syria's been around forever. Persia's been around forever. Babylon's been around forever. These are eternal countries, okay? And no matter what you do, no matter what you say, they're going to be around, and they're going to continue to be around till the end of time. So I managed to take something that could have been covered in 10 minutes, and I spent almost an hour because I was rambling on other things, some peripheral or side things. Nonetheless, thank you for your engagement. Those of you who have watched up to this point, shout out to my boy, Ascalon Falcon, by the way, who covers a lot of stuff, on site, if you would like to put it that way. Shout out also to Leroy Kong, who has always been supportive, even though he more talks about the Snyderverse. I cannot give him breakdown. Shout out to Koj, my brother from another mother. Truly, I think you're a brother from another similar spirit. I am more flawed in the sense of I'm not trying to compare myself to him, but I'm just saying he inspires me to want to be a better person. You know, my heart's in the right place, but boy, my flesh be doing all kinds of stupid stuff. So, but I wanted to express this particular point that there are legal implications to the abduction that has happened. And yes, Mahmoud Khalil was abducted. He wasn't arrested because they never told him what the charges were. He never was. Uh, he never was. Uh, 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 um, he never was. Arrested and then released, or arrested and then carried to the relevant authorities. He did attend two court hearings. One of the court hearings uh, uh, totally dismissed the charges that he should be removed from the United States. And then the second court case, I don't know what happened, but I do hope that Mahmoud Khalil, as a civilian and as a resident of the United States of America, will prosecute to the full extent of the law, uh, criminal as well as domestic actions against the people who have abducted him, because he has been abducted. Let me make this clear to you guys again. I want to make it crystal clear because I think a lot of you don't get it. Mahmoud Khalil was not charged with any crime, and the particular state buddy that has abducted him, again, this is not an arrest. You arrest someone, you have to tell them right there and then why they're being arrested. Now, even though the terrorist act that was put out there says, that they don't have to literally let the given person or certain people disclose national security issues, you still have to, at the same time, give the rationale for why you've abducted someone, period. And you have to address the courts, and therefore you have to state what are the grounds that you're abducting this guy on. And then we have to see the evidence and see if it compares to what the charges are that they're giving. You can't just, this is just the way how it is in the United States. You can't just blanketly go in without an arrest warrant and take someone from their homes or take someone from their workplace, etc. You can't do that. There are legal ramifications for that. Otherwise, there can be an exploitation of the powers of the police, of the military, of bodies who collect immigrants. You could just go in anywhere and just pick up anybody. They don't even have to be an immigrant. They could be a citizen of the United States and incarcerate them somewhere and torture them and do whatever else you want to do to them. So when they did this to Mahmoud Khalil, supposedly an intimidatory tactic saying we could do whatever we want. No, you can't do whatever you want. You're not above the law. And your organization can't do whatever it wants. And for you doing that, you're going to be punished. And you will need to streamline your organizations. You will need to streamline because guess what? Guess what? You answer to the people. You answer to us. You work for us. You don't work for wealthy donors. You don't work. And if you don't get that clear in your head, you're going to learn. You're going to feel. It's going to cost you big time. And it's very important that this happens, that the legal cases are compiled against these people. And not only that, but that I don't care if you're president, I don't care who you are, that you will have to come in front of a court of law and answer to the crime that you've committed. Because this is a criminal act. This is not just a domestic act or a, whatever you call it. This is a criminal act and must be prosecuted accordingly. Okay? And as I said before, the one thing you can count on with the American government is they're extremely incompetent. They lose a lot of legal cases. And so they can start off. And the thing about it is, when they lose those legal cases, you don't hear about it in the media. The media doesn't cover that. They'll cover the shock thing that they cause everybody to be in shock about. But the courts do their job. And they try to settle out of court and stuff like that. But no, this is something that needs to go through the courts and go to its absolute end. There will be no settlement out of court, because this is about making a statement. And you pick up any person in the United States, you better know what the fuck you doing. You cannot just kidnap someone. You cannot just take them and detain them. I don't give a fuck what regime you are. I don't care if you're Republican. I don't care if you're Democrat. I don't care if you have the best laws on the charts and you decide to do this one shitty thing. You will pay for it. And thankfully, there are laws in place to make sure that these fuckers don't do that and they don't overextend their powers. And furthermore, yes, somebody who breaks federal law, it's different. When you break federal law, there's more weight to it than domestic law, or should I say state law. However, having said that, it's very important to understand that if these federal agencies have actually violated the law in order to implement what they're doing, these federal agencies, the prosecution on them should be even more severe, because they're an agency. They're supposed to have checks and balances to ensure that they are protecting the rights of the civilians whom they are called in question to protect. You can't tell me you're trying to do anti-terrorist actions by carrying out terrorist actions, by carrying out terror actions. Okay? And for those of you who wonder, how do you keep accountable those people who are supposed to keep everybody else accountable, right? In other words, who watches The Watchmen, as you know, Zack Snyder's movie is? And that's where law comes into play. That's where the state laws, that is where the domestic laws, that is where the criminal laws come into play. And this is where you, the people, get your say. Because if the buck only stopped at the federal government, that is to say, the federal government has the last say on everything. The Supreme Court has the last say on everything. No, it's not really true. It seems true, but it's not absolutely true. It's not a panel of judges that decide the fate of America. You guys give too much power to these people. That's what's wrong. You say, oh, it's the final say. We all agree on that. No, it's not. Okay, I have seen Supreme Court rulings overturned. We saw Mark v. Wade overturned. The Supreme Court at one point in time said that, yes, this was legal. This is what this stands. And now they've overturned it many years after. It's not the final stay. It's not the final result. You guys need to understand, they can only go as far as you allow them to. And no, protesting in the streets is cool, but it is not the be all and end all. Another thing I want to say is, if the law is behind you, you have the right to take action on it. This is the problem. The citizens of the United States of America and the people of the United States of America do not know the law properly. You don't really know your rights, and you don't really know how to take action on certain things when they happen in real time. There are a lot of tools at your disposal. Again, let me reiterate that veterans and military people who are not agreeing with what is happening, I know that in the military you're not taught to think for yourself, you're taught to follow orders. But once you realize what the hell you're following orders about, Now you have to be critical. You have to think about it in terms of, as a collective in the military, do we all agree on this or we disagree on this? I know that's not how the military works, but that's how you will have to do it. You're going to have to come out of your little cocoon, come out of the system for a second, and evaluate it. Because guess what? All those people in the military, well, most of the people in the military, I won't say all of them, all right? Some of them are on a path to citizenship. Some of them are paying for scholarships so they can advance themselves. That's why they're in the military. All of you in the military, you have a say as well. You have a voice in the civilian life that's out there. While you're supposed to be protecting the civilian life and the rights and freedoms of American citizens, you also have a say in what happens in America. And you need to use the training you have to emphasize, to make a statement about what you're saying so that people pay attention to what you're saying. I would say to the military that when incidents like this occur with Columbia University, whether it's any university or wherever, that you can offer your services as protection. I think it's very important also that the military become even more vocal. That is, the individuals in the military, people who are decorated vets and so on, that you come to public meetings, that you come to the public forum, and you make statements, and you make sure that the media covers you in your dissent for what is going on. It's very important that the military, which everyone respects, at least up to now, they respect, that these people come to the forefront and start speaking and start taking action, especially ex-military. As much as they can do. I've seen military speaking in Congress. I've seen military speaking out against the atrocities that are being committed overseas as well as locally. And it's very important that arm, I can't explain to you how important it is that the military presence and the military statement. I know this sounds crazy because the military is not supposed to be doing that, but this is important. I saw one military gentleman lit himself on fire in protest of what was happening in Gaza. And I believe there's a lot of people in the military who feel exactly the same way about being responsible for the wrongdoing that's happening. You will only find the American, Israeli, and Zionist military people justifying the atrocities that they're committing. But the majority of the military people will not feel the same way. And it's about time you start expressing yourself, even as a military entity. This is the only way, and this is where civil disobedience sort of comes into play. In order for a fascist regime or fascism to be enforced, it needs people, it needs good servants to carry out the fascist acts. Donald Trump speaking on a platform in Washington, D.C. will carry no weight if the different agencies and companies do not execute what he says. So if, for example, he signs into law some executive order, if these agencies don't carry it out because they lack manpower for it, or people are protesting it within the agencies and saying they're not doing that shit, then it carries no weight, no power. And this is the thing that a lot of people don't understand. And I heard Elon Musk talking about executive orders that have been done in Word, but they haven't been carried out. I heard all of that. But at the end of the day, these agencies cannot do what they do without people just following orders, or not questioning following orders. You have to find people now to carry these things out. So what I'm saying to you is that now securing your borders is an important thing. Okay, I'm not saying no. I'm just saying though that why the hell are you trying to secure your borders? That's what you have to ask yourself. 1.1 million people go into the United States of America every year. So your population is growing by 1.1 million of a 300 million plus population, right? Some of them are declared, some of them are not declared. Here's the problem. The problem isn't the secure borders, because the intelligence agencies, et cetera, of the United States of America, generally they cover that. They are able to secure the national security of the country anyway. All right, because there are key places which will be targets that terrorist organizations will want to target. So it's only unless the intel and the the intel and the security and the different defense arms of government, unless they let their guard down to allow that to happen, it's not going to happen. Okay. So that's one. Two, America built its wealth. It built its recognition and its power off of immigrants from all around the world. People desired to come to America, make it better for their lives. And so doing, they traded off for America their skills, their abilities, their talents. And so when you say, and particularly Asia has made America great, okay? China, a lot of Chinese went to America, Germans, Africans, migrated from Africa and come to America. The Nigerians, particularly the Ghanans, Sudanese, not the Sudanese, sorry, my bad. What is it? I can't remember it right now. Whatever its name is, I can't remember it. Okay? These people have done well in America. People from the Middle East, people from Russia, all over the world have come to America. Most of them legally. But then you have some from Latin America who've come in illegally. They traded their time and work and effort and labor for dollars. A lot of people say, well, the people in Colombia, who, carrying the Colombian industry, the fruits, the grapes, the dates, the raisins, blah, 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 blah. These people are taking some of the foreign exchange and carrying it back to Mexico, Colombia, Latin America, their countries. So then aren't they emptying the country of money? No, they're not, because remember, they're running an industry. And that industry gets to pay them less than the minimum wage. So it's cheap labor in exchange for massive profits, which these industries make, bringing in foreign exchange into the country because they export things out. So that little trickle of money that comes out of the country into Mexico, it's trading time for dollars. It's basically work. So that little money that goes to their families is dwarfed by the immense profits that these major companies make. And since the labor is so cheap, it's like they're outsourcing the labor. But instead of outsourcing the labor where you have to go into another country, that labor is coming to you. Cheap because guess what? They're not legal. So therefore, the minimum wage doesn't apply. So in fact, illegal immigrants who come across to America to do the best that they can in that economy, they actually benefit the economy of the country. And they take jobs which other people are not doing. You don't see no black person out there in the fields, picking cotton, or, they still need slavery still around, ladies and gentlemen, but it's just in the illegal trade. Some of these companies, these big legitimate companies, they legalize these people. They get their visas fixed up and stuff so that they can work for them. Somebody got to work hard in the fields. Okay, somebody got to harvest all those things. Technology alone can't do it. So that's how they do it. They get this cheap labor from Mexico, from Ecuador, from San Salvador. These people come in immediately and start doing agriculture. This same thing happened in my country. The majority of Venezuelans that come across here as refugees, they go straight across and they start working in the agricultural industry in these big companies. They get a job right there, or they go into stores and they become, they're the general help or whatever. Listen, man, these people fill up a void that wasn't there before. They're very efficient. They're very quick. it's you do get black people in my country who will, you know, run stores and work and do stuff too. There's work for everybody. But I'll tell you this, the average black person isn't looking for a job like that, right? So that's why you find there's gaps there, because you can go work as a package boy, you know, for any company. There's work there. You get paid next to nothing, but the point is you're working. You're making some kind of turnover. And so at the end of the day, most Americans don't take. They say it's a lie that Americans wouldn't take those. I'm telling you, they don't take those jobs. If you are a citizen, you don't want to be underpaid for landscaping. You don't want to be underpaid for picking fruits. The average American looks down on those jobs, and those are the jobs that these companies and businesses need to run. And when they can get illegal immigrants or people who need status, and so they get them a work visa or whatever, and legitimize them in the state is able to pay them minimum wage or less, because they take whatever they get because they're grateful to the company that legitimized them or whatever. They like to do, oh, you need to be grateful, right? So anyway, and these people get paid next to nothing to do this work, which is cheaper than even, it's the word I'm looking for. It's cheaper than buying a set of machines, in other words, to do the work, because it's cheaper than even that, because you don't have to expend all that capital. You're paying out really small amounts of capital to these people, or profits, and you keep most of the profits. So yeah, the illegal immigrants, most of them, they like to say, oh, the illegal immigrants, they always involved in crime and transporting drugs across the border and stuff. Well, and here's the other thing that a lot of people don't understand. Ain't nobody gonna ship no drugs across no border if there ain't no market for those drugs, meaning there's not a buyer for those drugs. And that buyer has to be an American buyer. So it's not the illegal immigrant who is the problem in this case. It's the illegal transshipment of drugs that may accompany the illegal immigrant moving across the border. In other words, because there's a demand in the United States for these products, these contraband products, they're shipped across, sometimes with illegal immigrants. But you think by closing the border or trying to clamp down on illegal immigrants coming across the United States of America, that will stop the transaction of these drugs across the borders? Absolutely not. They'll find other ways. By air, by sea, across the border in an alternative path through tunnels. It'll still happen. Across the border through checkpoints. So it's going to continue to happen. You're not going to reduce or dent that, because the demand for those products is still present in the United States. So that demand has to be satisfied one way or the other. It's American citizens and Americans who facilitate and drive the illegal drug trade. It's not, if there were no customers in America that wanted drugs, the drug trade wouldn't happen in America. There's a clientele here. There are Americans who go across into Mexico, into these Latin American countries, make deals to get drugs shipped across to them, and sometimes through their own companies, ship drugs across to themselves. The demand is there. That's why this happens. And so, again, it's so naive and stupid to think, and that's why I tell you these governments are incompetent. You're blaming illegal immigrants because you are xenophobic, right? You don't like, people who are not looking white like yourself or whatever reason it is. It could be racism. It could be xenophobia. It could be they're just not like us and our culture, so we don't want them. All of a sudden, we have a culture. We weren't a melting pot of cultures, but now we are. We have some sort of culture. Well, this is our culture. This is American culture. And if you can't fit in, then you need to leave. That's stupid. Okay. Not to mention the way how even the Europeans came to America and what they did. It's just ridiculous. So, as I said before, any government official, any person in the Senate or Congress spouting bullshit, they need to be slapped, or they do your fucking job. They can't even do their job. They trump up charges against people. They make very ridiculous, unreasonable suggestions for things. And get me wrong again. Don't get me wrong. A border secured is a good idea. Okay, how you proceed to do that, but what I don't understand is America, for now centuries, has had an unsecure border. I'm putting it in quotation marks, unsecure border, right? For centuries. Why is it only now, the American public is so concerned about that? Makes no sense to me. Makes no fucking sense to me. Right? And the other thing that makes absolutely no sense to me is trying to evoke change, not from the top down, but from the bottom. You're targeting, Donald Trump is targeting minorities, the sick, the old, the poor people. It's always the poor people he's targeting. And they're looking at cutting out Social Security. They're looking to do tax cuts on poor people who are beneficiaries of certain things that help them to get by. Why are you doing all your tax cuts on poor people? Why are you doing all your not tax cuts, all your slashing of the budget on poor people? You don't even have to do that much for non-poor people to literally help everyone's standard of life increase by a magnitude of 3. People could be 3 times better off by simply encouraging that 8-9% of the population to be responsible and inject some money back into the various communities that their businesses are established in. And you'd have closed off the problems of people getting by and living. The cost of housing is still ridiculously high. That's something, again, the government has to regulate. And that's what the federal government's there for. That's the reason you even have a federal government. Housing's too expensive. Okay. We need to instill a law that encourages housing to be affordable, and so that people are able to get more places to stay. Yes, this is socialist law, and mostly the federal government will be implementing socialist laws because the federal government's not there to make profit. That's for the business community. The federal government is there to have an overall framework to protect the civilians that exist within the United States of America, because America is its first interest. So federal government's not there to make profit. It's not there. That's not it's an overseer. It's something to put framework and laws in place so that a country can function where pretty much the federal government, economically speaking, tries to distribute the wealth into the right industries, into the right portfolios to address infrastructure change, to address public safety, to address public health, to address public education, to address public work conditions. Yeah. Because if you're not addressing these local needs first, to address the legislator to ensure that small businesses can thrive, to invest in innovation, to invest in programs to help communities come together as well as to grow communities. This is not what the federal government is doing at this time. This federal government at this time constantly inflates its budget to satisfy its corporate partners. And it constantly will be at a loss because the corporate partners do not invest into the government as much as the government pays out to them. So you're constantly in debt. The government's constantly in debt, and the country's constantly in debt because we are paying out exorbitant funds and money, almost like stimulant packages, to these corporations and industries, especially the military complex, which is privatized for the most part. You know, we speak about the national armies and stuff, but it's mostly privatized. So they suck out like the living shit out of American taxpayers, okay, for buying off politicians for voting for certain legislation that they want. So this is the kind of crazy stuff that's going on in the United States of America. And as I said before, the government is heavily incompetent, okay? Whereas you have countries like China, Singapore, Rwanda, South Africa, Russia, which are they're streamlining and becoming more efficient as a government to tend to the needs of the people, and therefore have legislation in place to both foster entrepreneurship and business and new ideas. And also, they are also pumping money into corporations, which are expanding innovation, expanding the boundaries of technology. This is not what the U.S. government is doing in any way, shape. They used to. Once upon a time, they were doing that, but they don't do it anymore. And so what we have is a breakdown, a tremendous breakdown in the American infrastructure. And again, like I said before, all of their technology is becoming more and more outdated. And it's scary how far behind China. And that's why, like I said before, the posturing that America is going to somehow attack China and they're lining up all these bases in these different countries, it's just posturing. I can't take these guys seriously because the day they fire off the first nuclear weapon at China, or they try to carry out an operation for assassinations in China, and China's it has high surveillance. So you're not going to enter into China's space and they're not going to see you. Okay? It's not going to happen. All right? So I want to go to China just to see. I think my country is, while there's incredible intelligence here, in terms of information that comes to the country, it's a very small country, by the way. They leave the citizens with a lot of leeway. We're a very wealthy country. It doesn't trickle down to the average person. A lot of people at the top get tremendous sums of money. I mean, ridiculous sums of money. Okay. This happens in almost every government in every place in the world. The difference is governments that keep their populations happy, those populations are less likely to critically examine the governments and see the level of corruption that the governments are involved in. So, as in my country, which there's going to be a tipping point at some point because people are suffering here to some degree, not in any way near the suffering that United States citizens are suffering, but people suffer here. The standard of living has kind of dropped. And the thing about it is, and I'm trying to make my point of, is that governments worldwide, to some degree, because they are socialist governments, whether they say so in name or not, they understand that the population needs to have a certain degree of comfort. That is, you have to have a certain standard of living, we like to call it. And governments, which can be super duper duper corrupt, understand they have that leeway, because if most of the population is comfortable because their standard of living is fine, you're going to find those governments will be able to get away with more corrupt things because people won't be paying attention to that. They'll be paying attention to enjoying their lives. Than governments, which are very oppressive to the people, and governments that are trying to run an agenda where they can get control over the people, complete control of the people. And so the economies of such oppressive governments, while they may look on the surface glowing, when you look at what is the standard of living of the people in that country, like North Korea, for example, it's not good at all. And that's the critical thing to keep in mind when we talk about these things, that if your standard of living continues to drop and drop and drop, your government is not looking out for you. They don't care about you, and they want to control you. That's all they really care about. You are something to control. At this point in time, the tools available to the average American citizen, civilian, whether it be resident, an immigrant on visa, work visa, or student visa, whatever, the tools available to you at this point in time are immense. There are many different tools you can use to effectively fight off any chance or any shot of these oppressive, illegal activities that the government may want to put down upon you. You get a good lawyer, you can afford a good lawyer, they will sue the government, countersue the government to the extent to which it will be hesitant to want to pursue such a thing. What needs to happen with Mahmoud Khalil is the people need to make an example of the government, the people versus the government, with Mahmoud Khalil. They need to let the U.S. government know in no uncertain terms, just as how they're learning with the tariffs. You decided to apply a tariff to Canada. Canada came back hard and is hitting your industries, hitting your production facilities, hitting the economy hard. Mexico is hitting you hard. You try to fuck around and find out what the world will do, and they will come back at you, and you will realize you need them. Similarly, U.S. government is going to learn that they need Mahmoud Khalil, and they're going to have to face the ugly truth of having to deal with Israel's crimes. And they're not going to get a pass on that. And walking through the streets is fine and draws attention somewhat. But we need the legal teeth, and we need a lawyer to go represent Mahmoud Khalil and to prosecute the U.S. government to the highest extent of the law, that they, when attempted to do something like that, they don't try to do it again. All right. And the public outrage needs to be tremendous, accompanying also the legal whip. It needs to be harsh. It needs to be vigorous. And just like how Donald Trump is learning, he has made a truly big mistake signing that executive order for tariffs. He must learn that he's made a truly big mistake trying to target this Palestinian protester. And he's about to be rich off of their ass. He's about to get rich off of their ass. And some people are going to go to federal prison for this. So, because it's a federal crime. We can start with the state crime, but it's also a federal crime. And all it takes is a good lawyer to win this case for him and set precedent. If you want to arrest someone, you fucking better know. One, you need to make sure you have a warrant. Two, you better fucking know why you arrested them. Because if you can't give a case of why you arrested them, then it becomes an abduction. We need to hold these motherfuckers accountable. Just because you have a badge, just because you're named police, DHS, whatever the fuck you are called, you may even be FBI. If your motherfucking ass don't follow the right protocol, your ass could be in serious trouble. We need to have the people who are supposed to hold us accountable also held accountable, lest they go rogue on us. You can't have rogue elements in governance. I don't care who they are. It could be prime minister. I don't care who the fuck you are. You cannot just go rogue on us without us not reacting. Russia said, if you engage with us this way, we will engage this way. The protesters of Columbia University, the wife of Mahmoud Khalil, if you've abducted this man without any charges, we're going to press on criminal charges against you for abduction. And we're also going to press civil charges against you with respect to violating this man's life and giving him unsustained trauma, etc., etc., etc. I mean, man, we make the list on these motherfuckers. Run it. God forbid he comes back dead. God forbid he come back dead, because that, I mean, oh my God, the litigation against. All right, we don't even want to start with that. That litigation gonna be so. That litigation gonna be so lit. There'll be no settlement, by the way. That's going into the courts and it's going to its very end. And no such threats, because if you threaten, that'll be added to the litigation, and you will be recorded that you threatened. If you try to bully or if you try to hurt, harm, in any way, shape, or form, anyone of the people, whether it's a lawyer, Khalil, that's an increased criminal offense. So if you want to, pile up criminal offenses against you, be my guest. We'll just have you locked away in federal prison forever. Lifetime in federal prison. Just keep it going, man. See, the Hind Rajiv Foundation is gathering all the war crimes of Israeli soldiers, of government officials, of government organizations, and the IDF. And what these dumb fucking idiots don't realize is everything is documented in this day and age. Digitally documented. It cannot be erased. So everything's being documented in public media forums, in social media. Not to mention that the people who are being documented, they can be ID'd. They were so stupid, they allow themselves to be ID'd. So wherever they're identified in the world, action can be taken against them. See, these people are so stupid. They don't realize it. All these senators, all these Republicans, you should have been wearing a face mask, buddy, when you tried to do this heist. And all the people in support of it, doesn't mean they're criminally associated, but all the people who are associated with this abduction, they're going to have a hard time in the presence of the public. And some of them will lose their careers over this. They don't understand how big this is. And they don't understand how dangerous the ground they're treading. They're playing chicken with a population that is foaming and fermenting, already considered them to be. They've already considered Congress. They hate Congress. They hate the Senate. They hate Washington, D.C. Do you understand that the average American doesn't like DC? They don't like Congress. They don't like the Senate. They're extremely unpopular with the American population. The American population is at their last straw. They're hoping that Donald Trump would do something different. And now that he's joining with these people and he's not doing the right thing that he's supposed to be doing, it's only fermenting the resentment and the hate even further. And some people are fearful, but most Americans are not. Most American, you know what's the worst thing you could do? You could let people know they have nothing to lose. When people realize they have nothing to lose, they take action. And when they do take action, they take it in a drastic way. So I don't think the US government has thought through. I don't care if it's both sides of the house. I don't care if it's Democrats and Republicans are in the same mind on this. I don't think they have thought through the fact that they represent a hundreds of millions of people, of which 67% of them are in disagreement with what they're doing right now. 67% of the American population right now are absolutely against what Congress and the Senate are trying to do to Thomas Massie as well as to Mahmoud Khalil. In other words, Mahmoud Khalil is considered a leftist, right? Extremely left, because he's thinking of the rights of people and so on and so on and so on and so on. Okay, so he's like one of those, you know, pansies like they like to talk about. Oh, he's, okay, right. But Thomas Massie is as extremely right wing as you can get. When Donald Trump is against Thomas Massie at the right wing, and he's trying to eliminate Mahmoud Khalil from being in the United States of America, he shows that he equally hates those who are truly right wingers, who are American first, and he's also hating at the same time extremely leftists of America who believe that everyone has a right, beyond even America's borders, have a right to all the basic human rights, and that we should fight to preserve that. So you got this leftist that he's going against, and this rightist. I mean, as right as you can get. Thomas Massie is, I think, the epitome, the representation of true MAGA. Right? He's as MAGA as they get, without the craziness. He's not crazy. Okay? He's a very rational person, and he's the best of what the Republican values are. And I would say Mahmoud Khalil is what I consider a progressive, and he is the best of what a progressive could be, which is extremely left. And Donald Trump doesn't like extremely right, and he doesn't like extremely left, and he's trying to get rid of, eliminate, shall I say, assassinate the characters as well as the careers of both. And I can tell you right now, that's a battle he'll never win, because the true right-wingers are not going to let go of Thomas Massie. They're just not going to do it. They're not going to compromise it. And the true left-wingers, they're going to take action on behalf of Mahmoud Khalil, the protesters, the progressives. Okay, so I'm letting you know right now, he's got a war on both sides of the aisle he's dealing with, and it's only going to get worse for him. His leadership started off really strong with the TikTok. He reversed the TikTok ban. He caused the ceasefire. He was talking about cleaning out government, and he started off great, but I don't think he can maintain it. I think he's going to get destroyed, because the people who put him there, they wanted him to do X, Y, and Z. One, he promised, the disclosure of the Epstein files, JFK's assassination, Martin Luther King's assassination, that it would be made public. He put an executive order for that to happen. And none of those executive orders have been carried out. And so this ticks off the American people. They see him as a charlatan. They see him as some fake leader. And they're like, this guy's full of shit. So that's where they're at right now. And I'm going to tell you right now. It's only a matter of time. It's a ticking bomb. It's only a matter of time before the people take back their power from the federal government. I was listening to a vet and he was telling me that, we don't need a federal government. We should just disband the whole thing and just run by states. And he's right. The anti-federalists spoke about this at great length. And so if the federal government's not working for the people, we just disband it. Wall Street, we don't need Wall Street. American public doesn't need Wall Street. They don't need the federal government because Wall Street doesn't work for the American public. And the federal government doesn't work for the for the public. And the Federal Reserve doesn't work for the public. So you can just get rid of those, keep our state governments, and the states have an understanding through a union to deal with each other. We don't need a federal army. We don't need a national army. There's a lot of illusions and lies. The police, the army, they're all Rothschild and Rockefeller initiatives. The railroads that connected one part of America to the other, Rockefeller. These are the Jewish people who are so-called Jewish people who put these structures in place. People used to talk about, actually something that's very interesting. They always talked about the outlaws. The guys would rob trains and, supposedly kill people and stuff like that. If you really read, the outlaws were a protest. The outlaws fought back against tyranny because these big corporations, Rockefeller and company, they would kill people to be able to run their railroad tracks through their property. It was the same thing with the oil and gas. They killed off a lot of the Indians in their reservations. They even drilled for oil in Indian reservations. And they killed off certain people so that they could get access to those places. The tyranny happens with the people who think they have the money and the power to do it. And then history labels the outlaws, where they put out hits on them with bounty hunters. They would issue the outlaws as the ones who were evil, but really the outlaws were a resistance to the change that was happening and forced upon them by these power tycoons who were paying off people to have their way. Anyways, that's what I got for you guys. I'm going to get out of here. It's almost 2 hours in. It's almost 2 o'clock. I'm going to go do what I have to do, sell and stuff. But I thought I would do this video. I know it's pretty long. And I appreciate all those of you who have watched it almost to its end. I see you out there. Don't forget to share, like, and subscribe. I know this is a long video. If you don't want to go as long, this video was supposed to be 10 minutes long. I wasn't supposed to cover all these other things, but I did. So having done that, I hope you guys have a good time. I wish I could dialogue with you guys and have a conversation with some of you and delve more deeply into these things. Shout out to Koj for having me on his program last weekend, where we discussed Rebel Moon, the Director's Cut Part 2, which is really fantastic. The more important thing I always say is when people are tied to the land and there's this sort of equilibrium between the people and the land, it's a powerful thing. And unfortunately, in the modern age, we've been torn from the land. A lot of us buy things in stores and groceries and so on. We don't grow things. We don't learn that discipline about how to take care of the land, how to take care of the land, and the land will take care of you. So we don't really know about that. A lot of us now, because of the colonial powers that be, have separated us from the land. They also separated us from each other. The nuclear family has been under attack. Societal neighbors talking with each other, communicating with each other has been under attack. And that's been good because if you can keep everybody in a little cubicle, like in the workplace, where they're not dialoguing with each other, but they're supposed to be just doing their job, no socialization whatsoever, you can control people. And that's what they've been doing. All right, man. I'll catch you guys later. I am Christ. I am disciple. This has been beautiful talking with you guys. If you guys, again, want drinks in the Trinidad and Tobago area, I supply drinks through what is known as LIVE, which is the sponsor for this stream. I'll catch you guys later. Peace.